Hello, Jelena. Okay, I get it, yeah? You've had your lunch. You came here because it's dark, it's warm, seats are comfortable. And English sounds like a fairy tale, so you're going to have a sleep for a minute. Okay. Okay, so who here identifies as a human being? Please raise your hand. Keep your hands up. This is the post-lunch rozcvička. Okay, so if you were a developer, please put your hand down. Okay, so we have some people who are not developers. Anyone who's in testing or QA? Put your hands down. Okay, and so we have a few people who are not productive on the team. What do you do if you're not a developer or a tester? Okay, so you're all working, I guess, in IT, and I assume you're working in some sort of agile environment, and I assume this is the emotion you have when you hear the word agile, right? Oh, sorry, wrong slide. This is the emotion you have when you think about agile. Now, I need to walk. I can't talk and not walk, so I'll be in front of the slides most of the time. I'm sorry. Okay, so agile has become its own meme. I did a little bit of research, and there's many alternative names that kind of summarize that it's not really agile. And do you find any of this familiar in your team? It feels like waterfall, but you're doing sprints. Now, I'm an old IT guy, yeah, and I usually work on waterfall projects, so I did in the past, and it was like 6 months, 1 year, 3 years, and it was hell. A project that lasted 3 years was hell, and you do it every 2 weeks. Is that normal? Is that an improvement? I'm not sure. And people in the team, where's this T-shaped person? Everybody still has their specialized roles. We've got the developers, we've got the analysts, we've got the testers, we've got the product owner. Each is in their own separate silo. Sprint planning is focusing on how many features you can get in the sprint. Estimation, let's do the estimation. How many features can we do this sprint? Stand-ups, it's micromanagement. It's getting those tickets to go across the board, And the sprints, they just follow the same old routine, You're still doing the same things. You're going through all the rituals, all the ceremonies, and you're somehow expecting something different to happen, but it never does. And if you know something's going wrong, and then you go to the retrospective and somebody actually talks about it and thinks of some ideas how to improve it, then nothing ever changes because there's never any time in the next sprint to actually do any of those improvements. Sound familiar? I think it does. Why does our work always look like this? It's like a production line. Everybody's their own specific tasks, hands the task over to the next person. Well, I'll tell you why. It's no secret. Because it works. Sort of. We're still delivering software. We're still doing the thing we're supposed to be doing. And also the other thing is waterfall is a kind of a habit. It's hard to break. Why is waterfall such a powerful thing? Why can we not break this waterfall habit, even if we're supposed to be doing some sort of agile approach? Now, I did some research, and I found out the two ringleaders are these two guys. There's a guy called Frederick Winslow Taylor. Now, you might have heard of Taylorism and thought it was something to do with Taylor Swift, but I have some news for you. It's nothing to do with Taylor Swift. But this guy published a book in 1911, and this book was as popular as a Taylor Swift album. It really sold a lot of people. It was a theory of scientific management. And Mr. Taylor was a guy, he was a little bit OCD, if you know what OCD is, I'm a little bit OCD. If I see a mess, I need to clean it up, And he was a guy that liked things to be really well organized. And for some reason, he decided to go and work in a steelworks as a supervisor. And he was completely freaked out because in this day and age, the people in the steelworks, the workers, were craftsmen. Each was a very skilled person who did a specialized job and never, ever explained to anybody else how to do that job because their knowledge was power. Their knowledge, their skills were power. So they had power over the employer because they knew something that nobody else did and they would never share the knowledge. And this freaked Mr. Taylor out. And he tried to think about something he had to do with it. And the next person that's important here is Henry Ford. Now, Henry Ford had a very interesting idea, a revolutionary idea. He said, I want to build a car that any man with a reasonable working wage can buy. This was in 1913. And this was a remarkable idea because There weren't many cars in 1913, and the cars that existed were owned by rich people. So imagine this idea. Every working man can buy a car. What happened? What was the approach that these two guys followed? It was about productivity. You take a complicated activity and you break it down into small, simple, standardized tasks. Tasks that anyone can basically do. And if you do that, you've reduced reliance on these expensive craftsmen who are scarce and expensive. So you can increase the amount of work you're doing. Then you apply time and motion. You're trying to reduce every activity to the shortest possible time and the least number of movements. Henry Ford went a step further because he said the workman walking somewhere was wasting time. So the work moves to the workman. And this is the moving production line. This was a key breakthrough. The workman stands in one place the whole day, and because he's standing in one place the whole day, he's doing one thing the whole day. And then you imply some sort of, carrot or stick type activity. You have numbers that you have to fill, KPIs. You've heard of KPIs, the number of widgets you have to screw on every day. And if you don't fulfill the KPIs, then your manager shouts at you. And if you do, you maybe get a bonus or a reward. And these ideas changed the world. Henry Ford reduced the time to manufacture a car from 12 hours to 90 minutes. He reduced, thanks to that, the cost of building a car that was designed to be cheap from about $900, I think, to about $260 when the Model T Ford went out of production. Henry Ford was a billionaire in his time, not just recalculating today's money. He became a billionaire. People looked at Henry Ford and looked at Henry Ford's factory and said, wow, we want some of this. And so those ideas were adopted everywhere. They were first in manufacturing, and then they went into white-collar work. If you read on Google, as you used to, but now we just talk with ChatGPT, and ask about Taylor and Taylorism, many project managers consider Taylor to be a hero because it's the basis of their project management methodologies. And it's become a cognitive bias. We tend to waterfall everything we do. And this is why we're still doing waterfall, even in Agile. But there's some negative consequences. There's a belief in best practices. There's a best way of doing something because you've designed the process. So this is the best way of doing it. And because of that, you're very rigid. You don't want to change the process because that could have some complications. It might be a risk. It could actually work worse afterwards. You never stop the line. This was a key statement in Henry Ford's factory. The line moved 24/7. It never stopped, no matter what happened. If somebody made a mistake or forgot to do something, the line kept moving. And they waited for the car with the mistake to get to the end of the line. They pushed it out to the car park and tried to fix it on the car park. And actually, car manufacturers still do this today. Bosses are focused on productivity. How many features can you produce? How many cars can you produce? Experts tell workers what to do. There's an us versus them attitude, bosses versus the workers, and we've led to specialization, the idea that specialization increases productivity. Because of the productivity, we made people specialized, so now we assume specialization makes people more productive. Failure is associated with blame. We can track what everybody's doing, and if they're not fulfilling what they should do, then we can blame everybody, which leads to an environment of fear. And if you've ever worked in a manufacturing company or in a supermarket or anything like that, you'll know this sort of toxic organization. It's not a fun place to work. There was a need to rebel. There was a famous story about Henry Ford paying his workers $5 a day, which was an unheard of amount of money. But he had to do that because people were leaving his company so fast it was costing him too much money to rehire new people. So he had to pay them $5 just to keep them in the factories. Now, when I started in IT in the 1980s, we were also very Tayloristic. We were trying to fulfill ISO standards, 2001 and 2000 and something other, yeah? And we had to fill out lots of forms. It was crazy. It was very Tayloristic. So in the 1990s, there was also a rebellion in IT against this Taylorism. So this was our new hope. In February 2001, 17 men went to a mountain. They went skiing, by the way. It was a skiing weekend. And they returned from the mountain with a new manifesto. The Manifesto for Agile Software Development. And this started an Agile revolution. Today, everything is being agiled. We talk about not just Agile in IT, but also in business. We have Agile organizations. The manifesto has these famous 4 values and 12 principles, which I think nobody ever remembers, because when you try and read it, I'm sorry, but I don't understand what it's saying. Yeah? It's got X over Y. Yeah? When I first started working with Agile teams in the mid-2010s, somewhere 10 years ago, 12 years ago, everybody told me that they don't write documentation because the Agile Manifesto says so. If you remember, the value is that working software over extensive documentation. It doesn't say don't write documentation, but the X over Y framing, people take it to extremes. And when I talk to Agile teams today, the biggest problem they have is they don't have good documentation. So really, what was happening there is very obscure. What does it all mean? If it's so important, I really need it to explain to me what it means. How do I apply these things? It's got these blue sky universal truth, which smells of best practices. Is that really Agile? And it was never iterated. Is that Agile at all? It's on iteration 0. They never went back and improved it. And in Agile, we're supposed to keep going back and improving things. Also, the Agile team was 17 people, which we might say is too many. It's been mythologized. It's been commercialized because we have lots of Agile coaches, we have Agile frameworks, we're selling Agile books, and we're constantly struggling with how to make Agile work. And it's been weaponized. Even I've stood on conference presentation stages and said, have you read the Agile Manifesto? Which was my challenge to the people, that they aren't really Agile unless they've somehow learned by heart and taken into their work everything that's written in the Agile Manifesto. But we need to understand it's a historical artifact. It was an angry, rebellious statement. If you read it, it feels angry. Yeah, they were 17 guys that were being Taylorized, and they didn't want to be Taylorized. They were rebels. Yeah, they wanted to be free. We're software developers. We don't need to be Taylorized. And it's a limited grudging agreement, because those 17 guys that actually went to the mountain were each sort of authors of a different Agile methodology. And they didn't agree on many things. They actually found it very, very difficult to agree on anything on that weekend on the mountain. And it was written on a whiteboard. Now, you know when you're in a meeting and you have to write something on the whiteboard, well, nobody wants to write it down on the whiteboard. Everybody hates writing on the whiteboard. And because everybody has really bad handwriting and it's really awkward writing on the whiteboard, then you tend to minimize the number of words. Yeah? And then when you go back to it, you write it all down, you think, oh, it's great, isn't this fantastic, what we've written, what we've invented, and then you go back 2 weeks later and say, like, oh, what does that mean? You have that feeling, yeah? Yeah? So that's what happened. And I have to say that in IT, we're quite proud of our Agile revolution. This was a revolution that took over the world, but it didn't actually start in IT. Because if we go into the bigger context, Agile's been around for at least 90 years, and it continues to evolve, or it should continue to evolve, and it actually started in the same place as Waterfall started. Before the Second World War, in the Bell Labs in the US, which was like the source of some amazing innovation, they came up with the Deming cycle. Deming cycle is continuous improvement. So it's already a rebellion against the idea of best practices. There can't be a best practices if you have to continuously improve. Deming went to Japan after the Second World War. The Japanese economy was completely broken. They had nothing. No raw materials, no people, no energy, nothing. And the Japanese were trying to rebuild their economy. Deming went, and they didn't just say, oh, this is a good idea, we'll do this. They actually took it into the culture. And that became part of the Toyota production process. Toyota went from 0 in 1946 to being the biggest automotive manufacturer in the world, I think, in the 2010s. They put the team back into manufacturing. If you go to a Toyota factory, you'll see teams of 5 people with a leader. And out of that production system comes the idea of Scrum, which you might know as a framework, but the actual idea is it's a way to describe the friction of ideas. When you have 5 people discussing something and trying to figure something out, you have 5 different points of view, and it's the friction, they say, of those ideas. And if friction creates heat, it's energy. So it creates new ideas. That's the whole idea behind Scrum. They also got quality circles, which means that people working on similar jobs across the factory come together from time to time and try and share how they've made some improvements. That sounds like a community of practice. The Americans, when they noticed that the Japanese were getting much, much better, went to Japan to try and find out why. And they came back and they invented Lean, but basically it's the Toyota production system. At the same time as all this is happening in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, we had globalization. Now, globalization's existed for a long time. Since man came out of the jungle onto the savannah, we've started doing globalization. But when I was young in the 60s and 70s, it really started to take a hold. Yeah? And what that means is that everything in the world is more and more connected. So something that happens, for example, 20 years ago, we had the economic crisis in Greece. And that sent shockwaves all through Europe. We had an economic crisis in all of Europe because of Greece. Everything is connected. And when everything's connected, that means everything's unpredictable. And we've got expressions like VUCA, which came after the fall of the Berlin Wall, after the end of communism, after the Cold War. And now we call it BANI. The world is brittle, anxious, non-deterministic. Yeah? We don't know what's happening next. And to handle that, the ideas in the 1990s came of the learning organization. Now, the learning organization is built on cross-functional teams. And the idea is that organizations need to constantly change to adapt to what's happening in the world around us. At the same time, the first Agile methodologies started to appear. Now, you might not have heard of some of these. Crystal is a really cool one, by the way. It was one of the first ones. ASD, DDSM, FDD, feature-driven development. Sounds a little bit like product engineering these days. They were all appearing in the 1990s. In 2001, those guys went to the mountain and wrote down the Agile Manifesto. Out of Lean and out of Agile, and I think mostly out of Lean, if you look at DevOps, you see it's very much based on the ideas of Lean, which is very much based on Toyota production system. But they say that it's taken in the principles of Agile. So for me, the coming together of those streams is in DevOps. And out of DevOps, what I like to talk about, I don't talk too much about software testing these days, but I talk about quality engineering, which you might understand as software engineering or product engineering. These are the terms which are going around which cover the same sorts of things. So when I talk to Agile teams, when I'm talking about quality engineering, I think they're missing the point. And the first point is, what does agility mean? Okay, it's a noun, yeah? And it can mean, based on the Oxford Dictionary, the ability to move quickly or easily, yeah, it's okay. And it's the ability to think and understand quickly. But I think the best definition comes from sport, because it's a combination of those two things. I don't like football very much, but when my youngest son was young, he used to play football, and he used to be a midfielder. And you could see he had good aptitude to be a midfielder because he could think, he could look around him, observe what was happening in the game, and make quick decisions, and then adapt. He could play the ball there, take a run up to the middle. So he was very agile as a midfield player. So he's adapting to those stimuluses. And this is opposed to what we call this Tayloristic Agile, where we hear this sort of thing. Well, we've been doing software development for a long time. Yeah, we already know how the best way to do anything. And we can follow these proven methodologies like SAFe and Scrum. Yeah, and we'll hire experts, coaches, yeah, Scrum Masters to tell us what to do. And then we'll achieve the goal. But that's not the point. There's quite interesting stories about what actually happened on the mountain. And they were there for like 2 days. They still hadn't discussed anything, had agreed on anything. And Martin Fowler, who's kind of he's British, like me, but he's kind of my hero, actually has an account of what happened. He was there, it was coffee morning on the second day, they still hadn't got anything, and he went up to the whiteboard and said, "Is there anything we can agree on?" And someone said, "Well, we all know that great teams build great software. It's all about the individuals and how they interact." Now, if they'd written that down, I think we'd all be in a lot better place today. But Martin wrote down, unfortunately, individuals and interactions over processes and tools, which is abstract, we don't know. And in his 2018 address, the State of Agile address, it was in Australia, he actually said, he was actually reflecting on the Agile Manifesto, and he said the first value is the key one. Yeah? We need to find good people, yeah, that work together at a human level. It's not just about being good technically. We need to work well together at a human level. We need to collaborate effectively. And the team should not only decide, choose its process, but continue to involve it. He actually says that if a team decides to do waterfall, then that's very agile, because the team made the decision that the best approach for them was actually to do it in an agile way. Why do we need the team? Yeah, we already know how to do anything. So let's take a complicated system. Imagine McDonald's. Yeah? We know what the customer wants, comfort food. We know what it looks like. It's a Big Mac. We know how to make it. It's not so easy. It's a little bit complicated, but it's only complicated. We can break that down into small tasks, yeah? And we can train people to do those tasks. And if you look at a McDonald's, you'll see 12 students and one manager. And if something goes wrong, the manager can fix it. It's enough to have one guy that really knows everything. There's occasional problems to solve, but okay. Where we are mostly is complex. That's beyond complicated. That means there's some level of unpredictability. So imagine a hospital. This is my nice idiom. You've got lots of well-trained doctors and nurses. Yeah, and if you watch any TV series about hospitals, you see there that things happen that they never expected or have never encountered before, and they need to figure out what to do. Yeah? World is unpredictable, so we need to adapt to those situations, and that happens in IT too. We don't always know what the customer wants. We don't always know how to build it, and if the customer's needs change or the environment change or the technology change, we need to learn new things. And the process to build the software is pretty complicated, complex. And things go wrong. A number of times that we've had a system in production and after 6 months, some huge production error appears, which nobody expected, because software is used in ways that nobody expected, and therefore things blow up. And then you go to the innovative, which is if you're in a small startup, you might know this, you don't know anything. You might pretend you know what the client wants, but you don't. You might pretend you know what the product is, but you don't really, yeah? And it's experimentation, yeah? This is really where we can use our agile approach the most. As we go from left to right, the level of uncertainty increases, and on the left, or your left, we just do the work, and as we keep going over to the right, then we don't just do the work, we also continuously need to learn. And that learning is very important, because only by learning can we adapt to different situations. So how do we solve complex problems? I was pausing because I needed to breathe for a second. No, it's a question for you. Well, how do we solve complex problems? Smaller pieces, okay. I'll give you my parable of the blind men and the elephant. Some blind men were walking through the forest one day, or the jungle, and they came across an elephant. They didn't know it's an elephant because they're blind, yeah? And the blind man went up to the elephant, and one grabbed hold of something and said, hey, it's a rope. He's got hold of the tail, yeah? It's a rope. Yeah? Another one says, no, it's a weapon of some sort. It's hard and sharp. And the third one goes, no, it's a wall. It's huge. I can't get past it. And the other one says, no, it's a tree. Look, I think it's a tree. And the next one goes, no, it's a fan. Because if I flap this thing, I'm getting a nice cool breeze. And it's keeping me cool. And the next one says, no, it's kind of like a hose pipe or something. Yeah, it's flexible. Yeah, what is it? None of them knows what it is. But if they put that information together, then they can figure out it's an elephant. Each of us sees the world in a different way. This is quite scary. Each of you here is experiencing my presentation in a different way. You have a different experience to me. You're taking in different information. I think I'm telling you something, you're probably understanding something completely different. It's weird and it's scary, but in another way, it's good. Why do we do that? Because our brains are completely overloaded. The amount of data coming through our eyes, our ears, our sense, how we feel, who's looking there, they're paying attention, the guy down here's fallen asleep, I'm getting nervous. Yeah? There's a huge amount of information. So you take shortcuts. Your brain can't handle it. Your brain likes to conserve energy. Yeah? Back in the ancient history, there was no chocolate biscuits. You thought you had to struggle to get food, so your brain is conserving energy. It takes shortcuts. They're your biases. Based on your experiences of past, what you've understood, what you've learnt, what you've read, what you believe, you process the information, you filter it, you take shortcuts. So that's a good thing in a way, because that gives us all those different points of view. I can't see it's an elephant, I only know it's a tail. Together we could figure it out. Combining those different viewpoints, we can touch all parts of the elephant. And teams can almost always come up with better solutions to a problem than one person on their own. Even if it's a super expert, a guru, you'll find a team will be able to come up with better solutions. But we have to put the information together. It's not like, hey, it's a rope, and someone shouts at you, no, you idiot, it's a fan. That won't work. You have to put those pieces of information together. You have to be intent on learning from each other to understand different people's viewpoints. And that's actually quite difficult for us to do. So this collective learning is essential for survival. It's how we became the dominant species on the planet. Our tribes, the way we built things together, how we did everything together, is how we survived. We went from the jungle, savannah, and then we went to the Arctic, and we did it by learning together, collective learning. So, meet the team. Now, if you go on Google, I'm not sure if anyone uses Google anymore, but even if you're at ChatGPT and you say, how do you create a great team? And it will tell you that teams are designed. When I went on Google when I first created this presentation a year and a half ago, there were literally hundreds of articles telling me that teams are designed. You set them clear goals. You give them well-defined tasks. You select team members with the right skills and experiences, yeah? And then you do some sort of rituals. You have to do some sort of team building. So the first thing is to learn what flavor of ice cream do you like the best? Oh, I like vanilla, I like lemon, yeah? And then you do some sort of team building activity. You do some shooting, jumping, drinking. Hopefully you don't do the drinking before the shooting. Something could go wrong. And then you give them whiteboards and flip charts and post-it notes and Jira if you want to use that. And you've got Scrum Masters and Agile and whatever. You give them support. And then you sit back and wait. You've heard of Tuckman? Yeah, the storming, forming, norming, whatever, performing, I think, yeah? 1965, the year I was born. Quite amazing. Based on no actual research, by the way. He made it up. In 2015, there was a survey done by the Harvard Business Review. Cross-functional teams, by the way, are everywhere. Yeah, this is not just in IT. And they found out that 75% of cross-functional teams were dysfunctional. So it's pretty hard to achieve this cross-functionality. So getting the potential out of it is pretty hard. The standard approaches, as I put on the previous slide, yeah, okay, it's important to do those things, but they take time, and it's not the only thing you need. And teams tend to get stuck in the storming phase, yeah? Well, the quiet storming, I call it, yeah? So like you've stopped arguing with each other, you've just given up, yeah? You just hate each other and never say anything anymore. And teams come and go. The whole idea of a team, the cross-functional team, should be built to work on the tasks in hand. And if the task and the environment changes, then the team should change. And if you look at Netflix, they're constantly changing the makeup of their teams, which makes them very, very successful. So you'll change teams. You might change teams quite often. And you need, when you join a team, you need to get up and running. You need to get up and running very quickly without all the learning people's flavor of ice creams and doing the running, shooting, and jumping. So it's down to you. Yeah? And is it to be a team or to team? Now, the Google study, I can't remember when it's from, I didn't write it down. Google tried to analyze what made their highest performing teams tick. Why were they the highest performing team? And they had a hypothesis. It was they had the superstars. And it wasn't true. They did the survey and they found out it was the interactions between the team members and the way they worked together which was a defining factor of why the teams were highest performing. They didn't have the superstars, but they were a superstar team. And people need to be willing to learn together. And they also need to learn to fail, which is quite hard for us to do. So these are important factors. Successful teaming requires that the people, you, in the team, you can't ask a manager, expect a manager. We heard the talk over in the little stage just before lunch about leaders building teams. I don't think that's really going to work. You have to be in the mix. And here are some teaming behaviors. Amy Edmondson wrote a book. She's American, so it's 500 pages, 4 ideas. Takes a long time to get through. So I'm going to quickly give you the 4 ideas so you don't have to read the book. You can give me maybe $5 later to save the money you saved on the book. Speak up. We have the elephant. If we don't say we found a rope and we don't say we found a fan, then how is the team going to learn from my insights, from my point of view? You have to give the team your perspective, even if you think it's a stupid idea. And you've got to be honest. You've got to be direct. Don't be nice. Be kind. Tell them what you think. Being nice is not telling them. It doesn't help anyone to not tell them what you think. And encourage other people to speak up. That's my biggest problem. I've got boss written on my forehead. I've always been the boss of everything I've ever done for some reason. I never wanted to be. But people come to me and ask me what to do. I don't know. Do whatever you want. And that means that people say that when I start to talk, people just listen and say, okay, Phil's decided. And I try to avoid that situation by encouraging other people to come up with ideas. Collaborate. Be respectful. People have different ideas. In politics, we tend to have very polarized ideas. In religion, also we have polarized ideas. It's very difficult for humans to accept other people's ideas. It's really hard. You have to try, because you might be amazed. That other person might have a brilliant idea. It happens to me so often. As red leader type guy, I always got used to the idea that my idea was the best because everyone said, yes, Phil, that's a great idea. They didn't mean it, but they just said it. And then when I asked other people their opinions, I found out, my God, that's a really great idea. I would never have thought of that. Be ready to change your mind. That's the important thing. If you've already decided how it should be done, be ready to change your mind. And then, how do you do this? We've all got different viewpoints. We disagree, but we can agree on one thing, which is the goal. As humans, we are invested in success, team success. We want our team to win. So we've got a team goal, and the team goal should be, we'll be successful, we'll do this thing, we'll deliver this feature, we'll have the best product on the market. Then you'll all work together much, much better. And be ready to deal with conflicts. I think that's the most vital thing. We do disagree, and most teams get stuck in storming because they don't know how to handle conflicts. Experiment. Agility means constant change. Be willing to proceed if you don't know how. It's experimentation. We don't always know what to do. That's the whole idea. The world is changing. It's what we're going to do with this AI stuff. We're 3 years now, and we're starting to figure it out a little bit, I think, but it took us 3 years. Don't be afraid to try new skills. You'll have to now, I think. It's quite clear from what's happening at the moment. I think AI will be taking a lot of the skills we've prided ourselves in for a long time and take those away from us. We have to learn new ones. Trying and failing is better than not trying at all, for sure. And you learn from failure, if you allow yourself to learn from failure. And analyze the results of your actions. This is the learning from failure. Do something and then sit down and think, was that good or that bad? Don't just move on. It's very important. Give feedback, seek feedback. You often don't see your own mistakes. Deal with the emotions of failure. Failing is hard, very difficult to deal with. You have to deal with the emotion and then try and think it through. Deal with the emotion. Forgive yourself. You're only human. Humans make mistakes. We all make mistakes. Forgive yourself. Learn from it. It make you feel much better about your mistake. It's really hard. Self-protection. We like to look good. We like to look competent. We don't like to look idiots. So we protect ourselves by never admitting we make mistakes, not even to ourselves. And it's hard working with other people. How many times have you had the sensation that it would be much easier and quicker if I did this on my own rather than ask somebody else to help me with it? Like all the time. Yeah? And we don't always get along. By nature, we overestimate risk. These are all risks, personal risks. We overestimate risks. We are survivors because we overestimate risks. And in work especially so. You've got Maslow's pyramids of need. Work is at least 4, maybe 5 level of Maslow's pyramid. Yeah? It's high value for us. It's very, very important. T-shaped people. Now testers, you're all mostly developers, but testers have a huge problem with this. I'm a tester. Yeah, I just want to do testing. I don't want to do development. I don't want to do analysis. I want to be a tester. Now, you guys are not going to be coding anymore soon. You'll need to learn something new. You'll have to be T. How are you going to deal with that? It's traumatic. Yeah? But the T allows us to collaborate. If we understand what the other guy's doing, then we can help them. Yeah? And they can help us because they understand what we're doing. Yeah? These are T-shaped skills that allow us to do this. And when I was making this presentation about a year ago at a conference and someone put their hand up and said, Phil, you want us all to be generalists. And I stopped and I said, yeah, we should be. Yeah? We should be generalists. It makes us more adaptable. It makes us more flexible. If we only know one thing, then we're going to get stuck quite easily. Yeah? So I hope you guys are going to start doing some software testing soon. And I'd love to be able to help you with it. What's in it for me? This cross-functional teams. Well, my company switched from a hierarchical company to a self-organized company about 3 years ago, and the difference is amazing. This is my personal experience. We work on things in teams. Everything. Decisions are made in teams. And the quality of the decision is much, much higher. And it's much more stimulating. People get involved in making decisions. They say, it's great, I can work in testing and I can make decisions about things I wouldn't have a chance anywhere else. You're constantly learning new stuff. You see the context. You see the collective goals. If you know what you're doing and why, then you're going to be much more engaged with what's happening. Yeah? And you'll be much more valuable. If you have T-shaped skills, then you'll be much more valuable in the team. So being stuck in that smelly old silo doesn't sound so good to me. So, teaming means the ability to look stupid sometimes. Sometimes you just have to say a stupid thing. Sometimes you just have to ask a stupid question. And you'll be amazed by how many times someone says, hey, we never thought of that. It wasn't such a stupid question after all. You've got to find your courage to overcome this fear. You're trying to protect yourself. How do you overcome it? Yeah? Care enough about the goal of the team, I think. Yeah? You overcome your fear if you're motivated. And you're motivated for the team to be successful and what you're trying to work on to be a success. Yeah? Think about what you could be part of. Yeah? I've always joined crazy, horrible projects because it's an amazing thing to be part of something that's crazy with huge ambitions and goals. Yeah? It's something, there's a T-shirt somewhere in this thing is saying, bad days make great stories. Yeah? It's a fantastic motto. Yeah? And look at everything you could gain. So, those are some of the books I read. So a lot of this is based on my personal experience. So if you would like to read some good books, I would definitely recommend those. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, by the way, is one of the best books ever written. And it's nothing about sex. Thank you very much.